that takes place somewhere else, not exactly on the dance floor, nor completely away from it. Wallflowering is somewhat like plotting. The wallflower is characterized by a profound knowledge, investment, and even training in a performance genre, coupled with a view from the margins as an engaged spectator of that which she's ready to perform, and yet she does not. Her unpopular, often denied, but vastly practiced doing capture the embodied learning anxieties of the dance ethnographer with a specificity that the role of a participant observer so elegantly covers up. Marginality, misfitness, naivete, awkwardness, patience beyond the call of duty, and frustration with a smile are some of the very corporeal experiences to which a wallflower is subjected and an ethnographer accepts to be submitted in the course of fieldwork. The passivity involved in learning from others' activity will eventually deliver the strategic production of knowledge. Actually, wallflowering is somewhat prescribed by the participant-observer technique in that the desire to go native or to become totally involved in a given culture should be persistently frustrated by the demands of objectivity, or at least of maintaining the distance required for the production of anthropological interpretations. But anthropologists are wallflowers with a vengeance. The tense marginality of the expert in the midst of a participatory project metamorphosizes into a manipulative work of representation as soon as the discursive field of anthropology is regained. The wallflower position is more often imposed on women than it is self-elected by us, and arguably anyone who wallflowers, that is, who obsessively observes action while actively remaining passive, becomes feminized. It is from this feminized but not submissive position, the one of the wallflower who does not give up and eventually transform the dance scene, that these performative speculations choreocritically address women's position in the sensuous production of the tango. Sitting uncomfortably at the edge of her chair, clutching and stretching her toes captured in ankle-strapped high heels, the wallflower ethnographer intensely watches the tango scene. She looks for the intentionality hidden in every move. She knows that there is more to it than what she can see. Her hands placed on the small table in controlled relaxation, long for a notepad where she would record that today, Friday, October 26, 2007, she sits at La Milonga El Tuburio in downtown Buenos Aires. Her manipulative work of interpretation is about to start. The following sections have the double purpose of introducing some paradigmatic tango figuras or movement sequences while generating reflection on some paradigmatic ethnographic techniques. The tango embrace, hooks, spins, etc. are described in order to call attention to the practice of description in itself. The result is a counter-transparent effect, in that the dance ethnographer is caught in the work of ethnographizing, recurrently interjecting observations and interpretations. The dilemma of ethnographic participant observation, of assuming alternatively active passivity and passive activity, is thus highlighted in terms of a problem impossible to solve, given that it condenses the very possibility of the production of anthropological knowledge. I wonder, what would it mean for anthropology to give up the quest for the truthful representation of others and to recognize its fabrication of othered worlds? The ethnographer, in this case a dance ethnographer, will be presented attempting to capture the signs and the signification of ephemeral choreographed movements. She's a troubled observer, obsessively preoccupied by her desire to participate in the dance, while that desire strongly informs her renderings of the dance. The dancer's own desires are reported through her desire pouring into them, observing and unable to fully participate in the tango world. She discovers the power of her gaze, capable of not only observing, but actually also creating the dance through interpretation. Looking for empathetic understanding while simultaneously generating a report to the Academy, the dance ethnographer resorts to her familiar horizons of meaning, such as feminist theory and politics, in order to figure out and thus disfigure the dancer's stakes in the dance. She asks, does the tango present a fatal macho man, or does it stage a femme fatale? Is she a self-defeating, manipulative woman trying to make a dent in the male homosocial tango world? Is he a treacherous seducer in need of maternal reassurance who mistreats those he seeks to fulfill his fantasies? Who is the victim of the tango, and who the victimizer? And whose questions are these? The tango dancer's or her own? Observing, describing, interpreting, the dance ethnographer moves hesitantly back and forth until, overcome by overwhelming indecidability, she settles for an explanation that incorporates herself into the picture as a victim of the dance she does not really dance, a victim of the dancers now turned into a couple of victimizers, and a victim of her own desire. The tango figuras continue, prompting contradictory interpretations. As the tango comes to an end, the ethnographer discovers her own vindictive powers at play in the exercise of interpretation, that violence inflicted on the object of knowledge as the process of knowledge is developed. Thank you. The tango, however, objectified but not inert, transforms her as well. Her thoughts, her words, mimic and retrace the entangled trajectory of the tango dance, the abrupt stops, the sharp turns, the restlessness of the bodies in intimate embrace. The tango tension playfully erodes her manipulative attempts at thoughtful domestication. A necessary note. Neither tango nor the dancing bodies in themselves should be credited for provoking this complex ethnographic situation. The most down-to-earth cultural practice or artifact participates in a similar ethnographic knower-known dynamic. Bodies are not intrinsically more mute than nations, and dancing is not necessarily more elusive than economics. The difficulty of the scholarly enterprise becomes more noticeable, however, because until recently, dance as a field was left at the margins of the trodden paths of modern disciplinary knowledge. It is the lack of investment in developing a discourse to account for bodies performing the seemingly unproductive movements that allows these reflections on the ethnographic predicament to be revisited. Tango Figure 1, La Salida, departure or beginning of a tango dance. As handsome as he can be, not because of his physical attributes, but rather cultivating a handsome-like attitude, El Milonguero stands at some edge of the dance hall, against a wall, behind a column, next to the bar's counter, by the hall that leads to the entrance door, monitoring the milonga scene. His gaze wanders distractedly through the tables until it locks abruptly with La Milonguera's look. She has been sitting there, quietly conversing, not laughing, with her female friends since the last dance set was over. He interpolates her with an intense nod, just one quick reverberating stroke that raises his chin and runs up through his face, lifting his eyebrows. She might deflect his invitation to dance, flash through the dance room by quietly continuing her visual search, or she will immediately move her chair to the back, stand up, and after a brief pause, start walking towards her new tango partner as he moves towards her. An instant is enough and usual for this intensely engaging exchange. The Wallflower wonders, taking quick head notes. How did this happen? She would have missed it for sure. Yet they are already meeting at the dance floor. The tango music starts. They converse for a few music times, weighing their words, getting ready to carry each other's bodies. This is the only opportunity for verbal or even visual exchange among tango partners until the tango is over. They embrace. The tango embrace grows rather than happens. It is carefully crafted by the two, taking hold of their entire bodies. He initiates the embrace, already a movement without displacement, by placing his upper arm under hers, pushing upwards, seeking for the weight of her embracing arm. The torsos move slightly towards each other as the heads search for contact, turn towards the arms that will lead the dance trajectory. The tango bodies stretch both from the waist up and down, as if pulled from both ends along a slightly tilted axis, joining at the top. The ball of the feet look for groundness, well planted, although she's already brought to raise her heels in tension. They sense each other's balance, wondering how much challenge can they give and take in the movements they are about to perform. They quickly calculate the possibilities opened up by the firm, tight, yet flexible embrace that will structure the tango moves without asphyxiating their unmatching improvised steps. The wallflower watches the construction of the tango embrace taking place in what feels like suspended but not empty time. And suddenly, gravity seems to pull the bodies down. The knees bend for an instant to a tango rhythmic slash, and they slide without bouncing into a tango walk. They just walk. Walk together. Walk as close as necessary. So close that at a certain point, the differences between the two of you will become essential. The need to master the other is irresistible. The resistance to being engulfed is hysterical. Keep on walking. You cannot give up. It is beyond your control. Just try to make it beautiful. Perform. Do not hide your feel. Just give it some style. Move together, but split. Split your roles. Split them once and for all. One should master, the other should resist, and forget that you know what the other is going through. The interpretations of the wallflowers slip into the tango scene, her desire. The dance moves her imagination. Too invested in the tango to be a mere spectator, the wallflower actively spectacularizes the dance. The tango takes three, rather than two: a male to master the dance and confess his sorrows, a female to seduce, resist seduction, and be seduced, and a gaze to watch these occurrences. The male-female couple perform the ritual, and the gaze constitutes the spectacle. Two performers, but three participants make a tango. The wallflower dance ethnographer scribbles, annoyed by her self-reflections. Her tango dance masters pop into the scene like talking heads, interrupting her analytical flow. Juan Carlos Copes: tango is a sensual dance. It is not about sex. It is not erotic. Carlos Copelo: tango is not about power, it is about dancing. Carlos Rivarola: you think tango is machista, don't you? Eduardo Arquimbo: your right hip is crooked. Tango does not flow. Arrest your energy. Don't bend your knees. Push your thighs together. Tighten your ankles against each other before each step. Resist my lead with the weight of your presence before each move. Root the steps and liberate the walk, caressing the floor. Lean on me without compromising your balance. The tango teacher's responses always anticipate the wallflower's thoughtfully prepared and crooked questions. Tango is about guessing the partner's moves before they occur, surprising, halting the other's energy in a moving gasp. Challenge creeps into the bodies, but the tango music pulls the dancer's wills out of a stiff, antagonizing entanglement. The walk continues in a tense balance. The reshoot questions remain answered and never asked. Should the wallflower trust her skillful informants? They certainly think fast on their feet. Tango figure 2, el voleo. to throw something energetically at random, in tango, the milonguera's leg. Out of nowhere, the wallflower was distracted, lost in her thoughts. The milonguero stops the tango by planting his feet firmly on the ground, tightening the embrace and pulling her slightly closer and upwards as in seeking to catch her breath. And the eye of the wallflower ethnographer. Power, crooked, macho, erotic. The wallflower's imagination is triggered again. The milonguera's energy is arrested from the waist up, from the waist down, pivoting on top of a high-heeled foot. Her hips quickly shake back and forth, causing her free leg to make a gesture, a throwing around, boleo, slack kick in the air, high or low, containing the aggressive, liberating force that would throw her off balance. The rebellion, however, is there, insists the ethnographing wallflower, bringing familiar feminist understandings into the tango picture. The wallflower into the dancer's intimate scene, insisting on introducing triangles to explain the circulation of desire in the tango. The wallflower ethnographer declares that the sexual politics of tango cannot be split from the presence of the spectator. The wallflower bravely ethnographizes the tango situation. She produces descriptions and interpretations as she identifies the tango with her own familiar struggles. She observes, she participates, and the results are promising, pleasurable. Tango figure 3, La Sentada, a sitting action. The dance couple will not clarify the issue, any issue. That is the task of the wallflower, committed to ethnographic research. Focus on the torsos. Their torsos show agreement. Their faces, fatalisms, tied up in their tightly held hair. But from their waist down, struggle. Tango steps are developed in this context, heavily focused in the presence, the body of the milonguera. The male imposes his reassurance, confirming his identity by sitting her, albeit briefly, on his lap. La Sentada is the name given to this figure. She, the milonguera, has helped him to define his masculinity. Her display of resistance provokes and constantly reshapes his gender identity. Her own identity, as she falls back on her feet, remains unsettled, incomplete, on the move, in those transitions between accepting and resisting subordination to his identity and his moves. The wallflower sits and writes, confirming ethnographic authority and the need for external interpretive intervention. Tango figure 4, El Ocho, the figure 8. In the midst of a serious, firm embrace, holding tender torsos together, the milonguera's right hand exerts a pressure on the back of his dancing partner, slightly above her waist, with a swaying movement, a wave that strikes delicately, first with the base of the palm of his hand, signaling to cross her legs that way, and immediately after, with the tip of his fingers, another small push indicating the next crossing over, this time this way. That way, and this way again. Rubbing knee against knee, she slides one foot, almost sticking to the floor, obliquely forward. She gyrates tiptoed from the hip down, quebrando, that is breaking the waist, her torso always facing his, only to repeat exactly the same movement with the other half of her body, as if a mirror had sliced her in half. She brings her feet together, stretches her knees and waits, tense, for the next marca, the next indication, the next gentle push, the next musical time. The double curving lines that intersect and twist the dance trajectory complicate the structurally smooth paths of logic, the thinking patterns that should lead her to a conclusion. As the milongueros repeat the figure 8, the wallflower ethnographer paraphrases their intricacy and doubles her understanding in entangled contradictions. Tango's figure 8, El Ocho, assaults her with the impossible image of two victimizers and no victims dancing, a deadly woman and a fatal man, oblivious to the presence of a victim. Who is the victim if not the most engaged spectator, the wallflower swallows and sweats. Tango figure 5, ganchos, hooks. The milonguera, about to complete another figure 8, pivots on her right foot as she slides her left foot in a diagonal, full thrust initiated at the thigh. Her intentions are thwarted by a slight pull he exerts on her back. Motioning in the opposite direction, started for a split second, she recovers her balance and, facing away from her partner, redirects her free leg in a high-speed kick aimed at striking the void he has created by bending his knees. Her leg hooks dangerously onto his thigh and falls immediately back on the ground. Picante. No wonder Madonna adopted the ganchos as paradigmatic tango figures in her portrayals of a defiant Evita Perón. The milonguero is now the victim. The tango woman expresses her anger when the tango man gives her the space. Whose timing was it? And how will this situation develop? Tango figure 6, el giro or la calecita, the spin or carousel. Taking slightly broader strides than during the tango walk, the milonguera encircles her partner, describing a quadrangular floor pattern. The embrace slackens and the tension moves into their erected spines. The milonguero indicates a displacement that he will not follow. Nailed on one spot of the dance floor, making himself light on the ball of one foot while playfully ungrounding the other, then crossing it behind so as to turn in a twist, the milonguero provides the turning axis for el giro. It takes her exactly 4 steps to go around, a full circle, legs crossing way up at the thighs, 1, uncrossing, 2, crossing behind, 3, and free again, 4. Mechanically perfect. How can anyone see passion in this tango machine? For an instant, she saw the sacred circle and the ringmaster at the center trotting his favorite tamed animal in the arena. Tango figure 7, la cunita, the cradle. Respite. Milonguero and milonguera rock back and forth in each other's arms. They seem to offer comfort, even reassurance to one another. They give and take each other's weight, alternately by lifting one of their legs off the ground and wrapping it swiftly around the partner's opposite calf. Drop, rock, a caress of the legs, drop, rock. A simple, mirrored, repeated sequence while turning around an imaginary axis placed in between their bodies. The wallflower melts in tenderness, her back resting for the first time against the back of her chair. But she has seen enough of the tango world to know that no tango ends rocking gently like that. Tango figure 8, la mordida, the bite, a trap. An extended leg offering a foot as if forgotten there on the floor in a space that will be irredeemably taken by the other dancer's body if the tango embrace were to be maintained. The projected foot lays there, tantalizing like bait. The milonguera bites. First, she places one foot strategically along the inner edge of his foot to prevent a sidelong escape. Then she brings her whole body in a block, towering on top of the other foot, close to her partner. And finally, her feet clasp the milonguera's foot with determination and clear intentionality. She makes her arm heavy on his forearm, indicating he should stand still. He pauses in full tension. The milonguera swings a leg backwards, crossing the line of her own body, twisted at the waist, until her foot reaches her far-laying foot. She quickly strikes her target and grows back into her full stature by undoing her contortion. The same adventurous foot is now traveling up the milonguero's calf. In gentle strokes, she rests her foot on the ground by his, replaying the initial mordida. For an instant, she removes the biting effect by crossing over his foot, thus leaving it free for further displacements. The wallflower could hardly hold her breath any longer. She has seen it before, but the mordida leading to these spectacular variations left to the female dancer's initiative always cause her surprise. Is this the exception that confirms the macho rule? Or is this the telling figure, the one that Is this the moment of femme fatality the wallflower has been waiting for in her fieldwork? Are the milonguera's embellishments a mere digression, a hint of rebellion, or a spark of transgression without which it would be impossible to grasp the limits of tango's nocturnal laws? How to distinguish the wallflower and ethnographer's desire from the milonguera's desire, or more precisely from the desire the milonguera performs through her tango steps? Is it possible to gain access to the desire of the other? Or is the desiring other caught in the act of desiring all the wallflower can hope to ethnographize? And when the dance scholar, night after night of wallflowering, figures out that the puzzling question that she has been trying to address concerns the formation of pleasure embedded in tango choreographies, can she pull her pleasure apart from that embodied by the tango dancers? Can her interpretations of the dancer's pleasure stand disentangled, under control, and aloof with respect to her own watchful pleasures and displeasures? Not only the problematic and enabling pleasure of interpretation is at stake, but also the pleasure of accounting for the pleasure undergone by others who, as in tango's case, elicit the observer's complicitous spectacularization. Figure 9, El último compás, the last beat. With the last music time, the perfect ending, sharp. A full stop placed on the dance floor exactly when the music turns into silence. The tango is over. The tango bodies have been anxious all along, awaiting this trying moment. A retrospective interpretation of the whole dance tango will follow. Evaluating the corporeal communication between the dancers in the midst of a tango is a very hard task. The fast exchange of challenging entanglements erupting in between tense walks, the rhythmic juxtapositions played by the feet, the arms, turning from a solid to a warm embrace, all amount to an undecidedly harmonious, disharmonious effect. In the end, however, regardless of the raucous or serene nature of the tango's sequential metamorphosis, the moment of dramatic effect should be marked in unison. Two high-heeled slippers facing two laced pointy shoes, four stretched knees almost in contact. The embrace suddenly grows tighter, and a quivering movement ripples down the milonguera's spine until it falls from her tailbone in a straight line right down to the floor. The music ends. The two torsos release a breath. Two complicitous smiles signal the aftermath. They interrogate each other with ironic remarks. That was not too bad. No, not so bad. They might take the tango risk jointly again. Wallflower ecology. So far, I have provided intimate close-ups of a nervously observant wallflower and of tango dancers whose steps, figuras, have been carefully dissected. Now, I wish to create a more distant view of the milonga scene, zooming out and panning the ecological niche where wallflowers, the genuine ones and the perverse ones drawn to ethnographic writing, grow and transform. Milongas are a harsh environment within a harsh environment. Away from the milonga out there is only solitude, the milongueros and milongueras say, but they also repeatedly proclaim that there are no friends in the milonga. There is no secure, restful place either outside or inside the milonga world, despite the fact that the milonga, the site in which the tango passion comes to life, evokes images of a strange cult in which dance and music invoke Tango, the god, who would descend or arise, choosing well-disposed victims of possession. And despite the proliferation of ritualistic practices and codes, the tango cult does not amount to a tango community or to a state of communitas. In the milonga scene, each and everyone is there for themselves. Associations and demonstrated interests are invested interest. These entirely personal interests, moreover, are legitimate and assumed. There is no pretense and no expectation of communal feelings beyond the common interest of maintaining the milonga scene, that is, keeping the tango dance hall open and running and reproducing committed tango dancers. There is no real commitment either to a particular tango dance hall or to an established social group of tango dancers. The milongueros and milongueras are nomadic and enjoy moving to a different milonga every day of the week. Sometimes they even make incursions into several milongas on the same night, looking for the most suitable and compatible partners. Belonging to the milonga scene is also an unstable status. The environment is cool, not hostile, but rather loosely interested in the presence of anyone in particular, and the relationships established in the course of any one night carry on rather dimly into the next. Being a part of the milonga scene must be constantly reenacted. Having met, done small talk, or danced enraptured with someone does not guarantee in any way that you will be greeted, addressed, or that you will dance with that same person ever again. There is no social contract beyond that ephemeral incident of a one-night encounter. The milonga is cherished as a place of fortuitous and fleeting relationships, with no established loyalties or commitments, where you risk again and again the open possibility of fate putting some sweetness in your path, and you should be free and ready to take it. In entering the milonga, tango dancers step on a highly competitive stage ruled by the laws of naked seduction. The art of wallflowering, a gambling theory. As a matter of fact, all women who approach the milonga scene must learn sooner or later that every time they enter a milonga, they will do so as a wallflower. Unless she arrives with her set dancing partner, every woman wallflowers, and to a certain extent, so do men. Nobody enjoys it, and some are better at it than others. In tango, wallflowering is an art. A woman's wallflower position will be tested every single night at the milonga, no matter how good of a dancer she is. The events of the night, some of which are more easily predicted than others, will bring her more or less successfully out of this position and closer to its opposite, that of the dancing femme fatale. Dancing certainly makes the difference. At the milongas, most habitués aspire to dance, and they dream of dancing all night long. If and whenever this occurs, milongueras leave the scene as goddesses of the milongas, and very few attain this position on any given night. The wallflower, a dancing loser, becomes a successful milonguera, a winner of the tango dancing game, by dancing a sufficient quantity and quality of dances. It is not enough to get to dance a lot. You have to learn to be choosy. Dancing with the best milongueros available at the club is crucial. Milongueras must learn how to discriminate among potential dancing partners, and after spotting the best, they must carefully plot how, when, and with whom they will show off their dancing skills so as to call the attention of those potential best male partners. Accepting all invitations to dance, regardless of the partner's qualifications, are a sign of desperation and thus of low self-esteem. In addition, milongueras are judged in terms of how they get to dance to start with. Women who ask men to dance or who approach milongueros and start long conversations in hopes they will be asked to dance definitely lose points. Issues of dignity cannot be overemphasized in what is considered to be a successful milonguera. In order to move out of the milonguera position, you must become an object of desire, more precisely of tango dancing desire, an object of a doubly interwoven desire that includes the promise of becoming a potential vehicle for attaining the passionate tango state, that ephemeral sense of being bodily connected against all odds, as well as of generating desire on the part of those who watch the possibly sublime tango take place. For the men and women present at the milonga are the prospective femme fatale's witnesses, and the men among them her future dance partners. In their arms, tango after tango, the milonguera or aspiring milonguera will move from wallflower to goddess of the milonga. Here is where I should tell you about her elaborate tricks, her ways of going about generating collective desire, but I will not. I am contemplating writing a handbook for aspiring milongueras where these secrets would be revealed. This, however, would amount to betraying not the milongueras. They mistrust their competitors anyway. And needless to say, the Wallflower and Ethnographer. But a long-standing milonga tradition according to which you learn how to play the tango dancing game as you go. Verbal instructions or conversations on these matters are rare among true milongueras. It is expected that aspiring ones will learn through observation and experience. For now, I will briefly address the nature of her fatalness or irresistible dance appeal. She might or might not be beautiful, but she must act and move with the confidence of a beautiful dancer. She must dance tango well, which does not necessarily coincide with the former, and she must necessarily be a smart risk taker. As I noted before, a savvy milonguera chooses her partners carefully and studies beforehand their dancing skills. She will not decline dancing with all neophytes. It is understood that the milonga food chain needs them for the sake of reproduction, and she will avoid impoliteness and cruelty. Watchful milongueros might avoid approaching her for fear of being subjected to the same embarrassing treatment. But she will deliver what each of her partners deserves. Investing too much focus and too many skills in dancing with a worthless partner is unwise. Again, the milonguera loses points. Her fascination resides in how she combines intelligence and dancing skills. She is the master of her own body's seductive dancing powers, so reassured of her mastery that she can give it away at will. A milonguera could be thought as fatal when, after making herself vulnerable by accepting to be in a subservient wallflower position, sitting by herself in a highly visible spot, for example, is taken as a sign of admirable courage, she succeeds in becoming an object of collective tango dancing desire, a sure sign of possessing a highly competitive gift for intelligent manipulation. A milonguera who is a winner at the tango game is a talented manager of her own resources. Sweet revenge, murmurs the dancing femme fatale of the night, knowing, and this is a sure sign of Milonguera's wisdom, that she will fall back into wallflowering as soon as she steps into the next milonga. In the tango milieu, fatalness amounts to dance appeal, and in that sense, men are more likely to achieve that position than women. Dancing skills, attitude, and manipulation are required of both, but men are not subject to the same wallflowering requirements and judgments. Milongueros are in charge of asking women to dance, and although a woman may refuse to accept the offer, it is unlikely that a man will spend the night rebotando, bouncing. In addition, when men are not dancing, it is assumed that they are resting and getting ready to make their next choice of a dance partner. They are choosing. Women are waiting to be chosen. For milongueras, becoming a dancing femme fatale is a harder and an endless job that involves not solving, but rather maneuvering complex paradoxes concerning their feminine constitution. The milonguera makes a puzzle out of herself. She enters the milonga as a desiring subject. She wishes to dance. At the same time, in order to fulfill her desire, she must work at becoming an object of desire as she sits to wait for a dance. In doing this, milongueras often suspend, place between parentheses, who they are and what they do in their daily lives, and adopt a nocturnal feminine identity. This amounts to a milonguera's identity. They ready themselves for playing the tango dancing game that requires, as a gaming rule, to risk waiting for a male dancer to identify them as desirable. This is the liminal state of the wallflower that, as I have attempted to show throughout this paper, is a very active take on passivity. Once she's asked to dance, and as she dances more and more in the course of the evening, her status as a desiring object of desire rises. In other words, her status as an object loads up to a point at which she's able to exert fatal femininity, will over others. At this point, milongueros become her playthings, her objects of desire, and she can pick and choose with whom, for how long, and in what ways she wishes to dance. She is still an object of desire, but with strong desires of her own and plenty of desiring subjects ready to become her desired dancing objects. At this point, her status as a female subject has recomposed at a different, exhilarating level when compared to the one she experienced before entering the milonga, that flat and often compromised feminine agency she performs in everyday life. The milonguera's feminine identity is taken apart each time she enters into the milonga scene, and it is laboriously reassembled in the course of the night. The outcome is unpredictable, although experienced tango gambling experience helps. Her passion for tango is a dangerous addiction that entails putting at risk again and again the quality of her everyday femaleness and her skills at gaming nocturnal femininity. The milonguera is more than a dancer whose presence is necessary for the reproduction of the tango world. She is simultaneously a dancing workaholic and a compulsive gambler, hooked up into both the heavy labor of building femininity and a game called tango, in which her femininity is at stake. Milonga's politics of pleasure are puzzling, and they are often misunderstood when considered according to modern, bourgeois, and, I dare say, daily daytime standards. Milongas are fantasyscapes of that parallel dimension that is the night, when nocturnal identities come out with the wildest ambitions and the most fearless desires to risk. Within this milieu, milongueros and milongueras gamble with and through each other by dancing tango. They cultivate a multiplicity of social transgressions. They enjoy crossing over socially accepted borders of age, social class status, and even partisan ideologies. It is most definitely a gender and heterosexual game, but the terms are quite unconventional. Milongas offer a space for unruly behaviors, out of which odd and rather unstable heterosexual couples result. When judged according to modern everyday bourgeois standards, true milongueros and milongueras do not fit heterosexual gender prescriptions. Men are patriarchal and authoritarian, but are also often economically dependent and obsessed with their looks and seductive skills. Women are frequently wealthier, better educated, and more entrepreneurial than their partners, but forgiving and abided by romance, until they become fed up and leave the men for a better catch or a more restful existence. Milongueros confirm their theories about the female species and await a freshly arrived prey in the milonga niche. Milongueras tend to abandon the scene altogether, with a telling tango story of Wallflower and Femme fatales, often with a twist. The true Femme fatales of the milongas are actually men. Wallflowering gone wild. Growing wild images creeping on the walls of the dance hall, the wallflower exudes the fragrance of all failed performances. On edge, at the verge, from the fringes observing marginalia, the dance scholar as wallflower witnesses and records the dancing event. Wearing spiky-rimmed glasses rather than spiky high heels, the tango wallflower half sits on a chair by the non-dancer's side of the dance floor, skirting the milonga scene. She attentively watches the evening development. She's ready to dance. She has been practicing. She knows all the rituals, the glances, the nods, the walks, the entangled figures, and yet her performance is that of a knowledgeable spectator who fails to perform desired embodied steps. She scribbles, she interprets, she produces ethnographic writings. At the verge, she nervously waits to be asked to dance, and she does not want to be asked, so that she can continue performing to the point of perfection in her daydreaming, following the movements of the actual dancers, obsessively fixing, correcting, embellishing every embrace, every posture, every step, strategically interpreting. She pours drama into her writings. Watching others do the dance, joining in order to learn better how to describe it, gaining a kinesthetic feel for it, an insider points of view, looking at how one is looked at, searching for critical intimacy while discovering complicitous criticism, begging for understanding, the participant observer of the dance fails to account for that part of the dance. Is it what the dancers experience or what she imagines they must experience that continues chasing her until she sits stiff on her tailbone on the edge of her chair, waiting for the writing partner, perhaps the prospective dance reader, to ask her to interpret aestheticized movements? Utterly gendered, the scholarly wallflower, who according to the Oxford English Dictionary is a lady who keeps her seat at the side of a room during dancing, whether because she cannot find a partner or by her own choice, engages in choreo writings. The spectacular trafficking of corporal traces that enter the heterosexualized academic floor. The wallflower I have in mind sits perky, alert, awake, and unnoticed. She's smart. No typical melancholy wallflower, but her evil twin sister. The one who might or might not walk on spiky high heels, but certainly watches my and your steps through spiky rimmed glasses. I wish to thank the organizers of the conference and the Agassiz Theatre staff for their invitation and support, in particular Stephen Beale, Alison Black-Foley, and Claire Seaman, and Deborah Foster for her generous introduction. Muchas gracias to choreographer Susan Rose for collaborating with me on the staging of this interdisciplinary presentation, and to Adriana Pegorer and Carlos and Tovas Moreno, the fabulous tango dancers who generously contributed their time and expertise into this experimental tango project. A very special gracias to Miguel Nani for El Tugurio's animation, originally produced for the tango opera Angora Mata, and to Susan Rose and dancers for permission to use the video clip of the tablecloth tango. I also wish to thank Daisy and Wilf Maricondia, Angel and Julie for identifying and recording the various versions of La Mariposa, a 1920s tango by Pedro Mafia with lyrics by Sidonio Flores, and Harvard's Arts and Sciences Media Center for their expert assistance. A very special thank you to Liz Lurie for her most gentle hospitality, and I wish to acknowledge all maestros y maestras, danzarines y bailarines, milongueros y milongueras who share endless wallflowering and dancing nights and daytime tango talks: Lidia Ferrari, José Luis Luciña, Enriqueta María Palencia, Susana Canataro, Raúl Bravo, Marco Red, Capuz, María Edith, Juan Carlos Muñoz, Ana Postigo, Ana Gómez, Diana, Brenda, Cintia, Blanquita Carosi, Lance Liz, María Teresa, Eduardo Aguirre, Ernesto Guerra, Sorrelar, Ángel Caldo, Bocha y Lidia, Miguel, Esther Pichi Panelli, Liliana, María Emilia Pedro y Ana Monteleón, Eduardo Arquimbó, Graciela González, Ira Blanco, Juan Carlos Copes, Carlos Rivalora, Verena Boche, Carlos Copelo, Gustavo Navera, Héctor Quirichino, Pupi Castelo, Guillermo Cuñas Tarrea, Alejandra Quiroz, Brigitte Winter, Nicole Ricardo Mar Vega, Susana Nicolás, Daniela María, Jessica Esteban, Carlos Antonito, Toto, Carlos Cachunet, Susana Miller, por su pareja, Hans Müller, Fernando Walter Héctor y Natalia Gómez Gil.
Look what I did with the water. Can we go out this way?
I forgot.
I knew I was going to forget.
Origin, linguistic, geographic, and historical of the word of quantum of Milongas. How did it begin and where?
Could you please use the microphone up there, please? He's asking where Marta,
Oh, it's for me?
Yeah. The origins of the word Milonga.
I don't know the origins. I think there are a lot of discussions, as well as with the word tango, about the etymology. So I can't be very precise about it. There are speculations about it being an African term, milonga, as well as tango. And the origins are also traced to the Pampas. So there are some scholars that believe that milonga has even a Quechua, a native South American Quechua origin. And the debates about these epistemologies go on, and tango historians take great pleasure in continuing them. It's like, it's like the archaeology, the digging for origins that is endless, and it's a big source of pleasure, I think.
Any other questions?
Oh yes, it is. It is a dance. It is a music. It's a particular. It's some tango people would kill me for saying this, but it's hard to translate culturally. So it's like a kind of tango music, but it's different. It's a different musical genre, and it's also the place where tango is danced. It's like the tango dance hall in Argentina. So it has all those meanings. Yeah. Milongas are also the women in tango slang. Sometimes they're called milongas, the women themselves. Milonguitas, milongueras, or milongas.
Yeah. In how many cities in Latin America and in Europe can people attend a milonga and display this behavior? Where do you go if you are a milonguera and you are in Europe, or you are in Peru, or you are in Brazil, or in Buenos Aires? Where do you go?
You look it up in internet. And there are amazing tango sites in internet, and they're international, and they tell you what day of the week, at what time exactly, with a telephone number you call to be sure it happens, or because they're nomadic, so if they move that day, and it's incredibly active, and you can find them everywhere. Not exactly, that's the first part of your question. The second part, where you can see this kind of behavior, that's another. But this work is based on my ethnographies of the Milongas of Buenos Aires. That's why I try to situate it in El Tugurio, which is a fictive dance hall, but it's like to give you an idea that I was trying to transport you to Buenos Aires. I think that in Buenos Aires we have harsher milongas than in other places. We're more tough on it.
Since when has it been going on? Did it happen during the dictatorship? Was it possible in the dictatorship?
Oh no, way before.
Afterwards?
No, there have been milongas. We don't know exactly. With all popular culture, I mean, there are no documents, so it's all through anecdotes and memoirs, and so we don't have exact dates. But by 1903, for sure, we already had milongas in Buenos Aires, and very soon after that, in other parts.
What age do men and women, respectively, begin to enter the milongas?
There is no set age, and there are neighborhood milongas, milonga de barrio, where families, all together go to the milongas, and children dance tango since whenever they want. When they're 4 or 5, they start walking, they start dancing. It's there's no requirement, no prohibition, no prescription, no proscription. And but there are other milongas where children would be out of place. So, downtown milongas, or nowadays even milongas that cater to foreigners coming to Buenos Aires, and that they know they will be uncomfortable if children are there. Families are not attracted to going there. So.
Thank you. I'm sorry to have to cut off any further questions, but I just got the cut off part. And I want to thank Marta and everyone.